Hey hockey player, in this video I'm going to be going over what's currently holding your speed back out in the ice. Now, when it comes to having a coach's eye on you, a coach's programming is extremely important when it comes to you becoming a better hockey player. But what's a little bit more important about a coach viewing you is not identifying your strengths, but identifying your weaknesses. A great coach can identify weaknesses. Anybody can see what you're already good at. But if you keep doing what you're already doing, you're only going to get more of what you've already got. Finding your weaknesses is what's going to take you to the next level because you're only ever going to be as strong as your weakest link in the chain. That's how physiology works, that's how performance works, and that's how you work. So what I've done for you today is I've identified 10 different aspects of hockey speed, and I want to go through each one of them with you so that you can identify which weak link you currently have, and therefore work on that weak link and do the next thing that you need to do to propel yourself into becoming a faster hockey player and more explosive hockey player out in the ice. Let's get into it. Number one here is strength. Contrary to popular belief, strength training is incredibly important for speed. You're going to see a lot of athletes just do the cone drills, just do the ladder drills, just do dry land training drills. Now, although they have their time and place in programming, for sure, when it comes to speed, conditioning, and agility development, you need to be strong. Strength is a huge part of speed because it determines what's known as relative strength. So a power lifter may be after an absolute level of strength, but a hockey athlete should be after a relative level of strength. You need to be strong in relation to your body weight. An example that's very easy to understand is if you had two hockey athletes. One could squat, they're both 180 pounds, they both have equal level of ability on the ice. One can squat 400 pounds and the other can squat only 200 pounds. So if you're trying to dig your skate into the ice, this is how skating works, to propel yourself forward, you're driving force down and backwards with your lower body to propel your upper body and your whole body forward on the ice. The guy who can squat 400 pounds is pressing down into the ice with 200 pounds per leg. But the athlete who can only squat 200 pounds is driving down only 100 pounds of force per leg into the ice to propel himself forward. Who do you think is going to have the quicker first step? Who do you think is going to be faster overall? Who do you think is going to have the better stride length and stride frequency? The guy who's strong 10 times out of 10 because they're at the exact same body weight, but his relative strength is allowing him to be much more explosively fast out in the ice. Hugely critical component of speed that far too often goes underlooked is strength. Number two is power output. So just like a power lifter is after an absolute level of strength and not a relative level of strength, power is something that's different than strength sports as well, because power is not your strength. It's the rate at which you can produce force. So for example, again, let's say we have 280-pound hockey players and they can both deadlift 400 pounds, but one of them can deadlift it faster. The one who can deadlift it faster has a higher level of power output because he is able to produce that level of force faster. So even though they have the exact same strength, they have different power abilities. And the power is not your absolute strength, but the rate at which you are able to get to your absolute strength. That is what real power is. So power, through the lens of a hockey athlete, is your ability to be explosive out in the ice. It's your ability to have a good level of agility because high velocity direction change is stop-start. So when you stop, you stop. So your ability to start depends exclusively upon your rate of force production and not your total force production. So you need to be incredibly powerful, and power is trained differently than strength in the gym. Power is trained with lighter weights, typically between 40 and 60% of 1 rep max, for explosive tempos, very explosive movements, little bit lighter weights, typically for only 5 reps or less, because you need to be as explosive as possible. Whereas strength can be trained anywhere from 6 to even 20 reps, or lower or higher, depending on what research that you're looking at. There's a lot of ways in which you can provide overload on the body, but it's very, very different than power. So your program needs to include strength training, and your program needs to have a periodization scheme that ultimately leads you to power output as well, so that you're not just strong, but you're also incredibly explosive, because they're both components of speed. Number 3 is your core stability. Your core is essentially what allows you, your core doesn't create power. That's like one big misconception. A lot of people say, I need more core power. Your core transfers power. It doesn't create power. So anybody who knows what they're talking about in terms of sports science kinetic chain expression, so using your entire body in explosive movement, that is an expression of the entire body. But power is generated from the ground, transferred through the core, and then expressed through the extremities. That's how power development works. You create power with your legs and hip rotation, but then once that power is generated, it is only transferred through the core. For example, a slap shot. I'm gonna rotate back, but I'm using my hips to really drive that shot through. A boxer is the same way. They're gonna use their hips first to load that punch up. You see a punch is actually a total body movement, and that's because power is generated from the ground, transferred through the core. So core is not going to give you power, but it's going to allow you to express your maximal power that you are creating with your legs and your hips. A lot of hockey athletes do a lot of lower body workouts. They do a lot of their lower bodies are very strong and powerful. They're explosive, but your body's core is your rate limiting step. So if you don't have the core anti-rotary stability to handle that transfer of power to the extremities, then your body will actually shut down how much power your legs are able to output. So if I can output 100 units of force through my legs, but my core can only handle 80, well then my body's neurological system will shut down the power development of my leg so that I only create 80 units of force, so that because my core can only handle 80 units of force, because my core's #1 job is to protect my spine. So your body's not gonna say, hey, we need lower body power right now. It'll never say that over top of the safety of your spine. So your neurological system will shut down power development in other areas of the body, which means you're a slower hockey player, but all you needed was more core stability. So if you don't have core program designed correctly for hockey athletes, that's something that's limiting your power output. And if you're limiting your power output, you're limiting your ability to be an explosive and fast hockey player. Number 4 is your nutrition. A lot of hockey athletes will simply say, I just didn't have legs today. I got so tired. I wasn't as explosive today. What kind of training should I be doing? Yeah, but they tell me that, but then they have a bowl of cereal before a game. They've been eating junk food all day. They went to McDonald's before they got to the tournament. Don't be surprised if you put crappy fuel in a car if the car performs crappily. If you want to be a high-performance car, you're going to need high-performance fuel. That's the only way high-performance cars perform, is because they got that fuel in them. Human body's the same way. You can't perform like a high-performance machine if you're giving yourself low-performance fuel. So nutrition is something that unlocks what I call dormant speed. You may be faster than you actually have allowed yourself to express right now because your diet is so bad, it's holding you back. So get on a hockey-specific nutrition plan to support speed, conditioning, endurance that you need on the ice. Get that pregame meal in, stay hydrated, and do what you need to do to actually perform, and then you may see your actual speed that's been dormant, that's been hidden because you haven't given yourself the fuel yet to get to the 5th gear. Number 5 is body fat. So body fat is, although it's a touchy subject for some, it is also a non-negotiable when it comes to speed out in the ice. It comes very much down to relative strength. You want to be as strong as possible in relation to your body weight. So if you're holding on to unnecessary body fat, well, you can't contract body fat. So it's not going to make you faster at all. It will reduce your conditioning because it's basically like carrying around a weighted vest everywhere you go on the ice. But then it's also going to decrease your explosive first step because you don't have the same relative strength or power expression because you're holding on to more force that you need to apply now to be able to handle that. So the leaner that you can be for speed, the better. And in many cases, just getting leaner is actually the fastest way hockey players can get faster. Because even if you train wrong, even if you get leaner, you're going to be relatively stronger just because you lost body fat. Okay? Something to think about. Next is your technique. Technique is something that's very important as well. Your technique both in the gym and on the ice. A good technical coach will be able to allow you to express your speed outputs in the most fluid and energy efficient ways. So you should be watching videos on speed technique like we have in the hockeytraining.com VIP members area, but you should also be working with a coach perhaps in your local area to help out with your skating technique as well. So skating technique is very important, but then also your technique off the ice is important as well. Sprinting mechanics are technical. Jumping mechanics are technical, and lifting in the gym is technical. And the problem with this is technique is arguably the most important thing in your dry land training, because you perform a specific exercise for a specific number of sets and reps at a specific intensity to get a specific adaptation and result from that movement. But if you perform the movement wrong, then your sets, your reps, your intensities, all of that stuff doesn't even matter because you're recruiting the improper muscle groups, you've got poor nervous system motor patterns happening, and you're not actually getting the result you were supposed to get because you weren't doing the movement that you were supposed to be doing. It means you're going to be slower, it means you're going to be weaker, it means you'll be at a higher risk for injury and structural imbalances as well. So technique on the ice and off the ice is very important. Number 7 is your recovery. Let me tell you something I don't ever want you to forget. You are only going to be able to perform based on how well you can recover, period. That's how performance works. You have to be maximally recovered from your workouts and from your games if you're hoping at performing at optimal work capacities in your next bout. For example, if you have a workout this morning and then you have a game later on tonight, well, then you better be employing the proper cool down strategies, nutritional strategies, and supplement strategies to recover to 100% before that game comes around, and not just to 80%. Because if you're only 80% recovered, you can only ever get 80% of your performance. So recovery is something that should be built right into the plan. Just like you have a training program and just like you have a schedule to get in the ice, you should have a schedule for your recovery. It should be built right into the plan because you can't have one without the other. Recovery determines whether or not you actually get any results from your training, period. So we need that recovery. Number 8, we need mobility. Mobility is something that often gets overlooked, and I know it gets overlooked because so many hockey athletes have ankle stability and mobility issues. They've got tight hips, they've got lower backs that hurt, they pull their hamstrings in their groin, they've got terrible external rotation within their shoulders. All of these things are very notable and repeatable in hockey athletes. This is simply because they're not paying enough attention to it. They don't have a warm-up routine that emphasizes hip mobility. They don't have a cool-down routine that's emphasizing their thoracic spine mobility. And these things are super important because movement quality is going to determine your technical prowess out in the ice. So even if you are strong and you are powerful, you have a stable core, you got a good diet, you're a lean guy, and you've been working on your technique, and you're recovered, mobility will still hold you back. Because if you can't move like an athlete, you'll never perform like an athlete. You ever notice those guys out there who don't do a lot of strength training, don't look very lean, and you could beat them in the gym during exercises any day of the week, but they're still faster than you, they still seem more conditioned than you? It's because they've got excellent mobility. So there's no energy leaks or movement inefficiencies in their execution out in the ice. So they're fluid, they're swift, and no energy is wasted throughout any movement that they do. So they hold on to the energy that they need, and they're able to express the speed that they desire out in the ice. And a lot of that comes down to just not having restrictions within your body, because any restriction that you have results in a compensation. If, for example, if I have tight hip flexors, well, then your lower back and your lumbar spine have to stabilize, they have to compensate and become a acting stabilizing muscle for that. And when you have something that's compensating, then it's going to be more susceptible to injury because it's doing something that it shouldn't be doing. There's examples like that all over the body, but in the end, if you're not mobile, you're not moving right. And if you're not moving right, you're not going to be a fast hockey player, plain and simple. Number 9 is conditioning, and this is twofold. So number 1, sometimes people are actually fast, but then they don't appear fast out in the ice because they're not conditioned. It doesn't matter how fast you are in the first period, because if you're out of gas by the time the second and third rolls around, it's your conditioning that's going to hold back your speed. So conditioning is something that hockey athletes have to have so that they can maintain their speed. There's something known as alactic power that determines your explosive power output, but then there's also something known as alactic capacity, which is your ability to maintain that power expression throughout a sporting event for a longer duration of time. Both must be trained accordingly in order to get a hockey-specific speed result in the first period and then also in the third period. So that's the first thing that's important for conditioning. Second thing that's important for conditioning is too many hockey athletes treat their speed programming like their conditioning programming, and they are different trainable qualities. Speed is your ability to perform a given task fast. Conditioning is your ability to perform a given task long. Those workouts are totally different. And the biggest insult that I see to hockey speed training is how short people are putting their rest periods. 30 seconds, 45 seconds, 60 seconds. These rest periods are too short. That is a conditioning workout. That is not a speed workout. Speed expression can't happen without full recovery, period. Conditioning, on the other hand, the whole point is to start your next set or rep in a pre-fatigued state because you're training the body to operate in a state of fatigue. So you're purposely having short rest periods to become more conditioned. But for speed, you purposely have to lengthen your rest periods so that you're fully recovered and can express optimal speed output in your dry land training. They're two very different trainable qualities, and I just see hockey athletes so often do nothing but conditioning workouts and then wonder why they're not getting faster. You're not getting faster because you're training conditioning. Then it's that plain and simple. It's like doing bodybuilding training and then wondering why you're not becoming a better hockey player. You're training for bodybuilding, you're not training for hockey. Just like a lot of you are training for conditioning and you're not training for speed. So make sure that you are conditioned, but also make sure that you are training for speed when you want to become a faster hockey player. And last but not least, your warm-up will improve your speed. The activation of your nervous system, the activation of your muscles, the increasing of your core temperature, the lubrication of your joints, these are all things that a proper warm-up should do, and these all set the stage for an optimized physiology to be faster. You can think about a warm-up like pulling back on a slingshot and then letting it go and allowing you to go into the game or into your workout as fast as possible, because we've reached a heightened state physiologically and psychologically to allow us to express our maximal speed out in the ice. Don't skip the warm-up, and have a proper hockey-specific warm-up that improves performance and doesn't just get you loose, okay? You can't just do a couple of these and then hope that that's your warm-up. Real warm-ups are a science, so you should be following a proper warm-up. All right, what's holding you back? You should be able to look at this list and pick 2 to 5 things, your weakest ones, and then also ones you know you could work on. Once you identify those 2 to 5 things, now you know what to prioritize in your hockey training in your next 3 phases so that you can get rid of those weaknesses and allow yourself to not have weak links in the chain and therefore become a much, much faster hockey player. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you learned anything and if you found value in this message today, make sure you smash that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel as well. And for more information on hockey training for speed, go to hockeytraining.com/speed or check out the VIP members area for all things speed programming and technical work. Cheers.